Alright guys, so as you can see, I'm in a little bit of a different location this time for this video. My kids are home from school and they are currently watching Blaze and the Monster Machines, and I didn't want to have to tell them that they had to be silent while I did this after a long day at school, so I just decided to come outside. So yeah, we're sitting on my front porch. So I had several people say that this lab seems a little bit confusing. So what I did is I pretended like I was a student, and I went through and I did it exactly the way that y'all would have done it. So I watched each video individually, filled out my own little sheet here with what was a positive test, what was a negative test, and then I went through and did the second page with the apple, cheese, and biscuit. It's a cookie, but it says it's not a biscuit like biscuit and gravy. It's a biscuit like in England biscuits or cookies. So if some of these tests didn't kind of make sense to you because you saw biscuit and thought, you know, biscuit and gravy instead of cookie, that might be part of it. So okay, with that first video with the Benedict's reagent, you're testing for the simple sugars. So shorter monosaccharide chains, simple sugars. And so you have your control, which is the water, and then when you add the Benedict's to the water, there shouldn't be a color change. So Benedict's is blue, and so when you add it to water, it should still be blue. You just tint the water blue. Whereas when you add it to the glucose solution and you add heat, now that's the big thing with the Benedict's reagent. You've got to put it in a hot water bath. So about 70 degrees Celsius. The guy in the video at the end did a recently boiled tea kettle. So you got to put it in a hot water bath in order for the reaction to take place. You got to add that heat. That's an important step on that one. So the positive change is a change from that blue to orange. It's a very clear change on that. So that's the simple sugar test. The carbohydrate test, the polysaccharide test, so the bigger molecules. So simple sugars, polysaccharides, longer chains of those saccharides, bigger molecules. You use iodine for that. So again, you have water for the control, and then you have a starch solution. So when you add the iodine, everybody knows what iodine looks like. You've had to clean something, like you've had something on you cleaned, like in a doctor's office setting or whatever. It's that iodine, the iodine wipes. If you've ever had stitches, they wipe it down. So it's kind of brown to start with. So when you add that liquid iodine to water, it's just going to look kind of orange. It's going to, again, just the diluted color, because when you add color to water, it dilutes the color. So if there is starch present, if there are polysaccharides present, it's going to turn dark, like a dark blue, black, dark purple. Like there is an obvious change there. So it's not going to look orange at all. It's going to be a clear color change to dark blue, black. On the, sorry, I'm trying to follow along on my computer. On the fats test, we will be using the Sudan 4 when we do that, so it's red. In the video where you have to fill out your chart with the biscuit apple cheese, with the cookie apple cheese, he uses not Sudan 4, he uses, I think, ethyl alcohol. And it's just a different reaction, but the theory remains the same. Sorry, my paper keeps blowing in the wind, so I'm trying to prop it up here. The theory remains the same. So you still get a positive test where you would get a positive test. It just has a different outcome. So that also might have been a point of confusion, where we use the Sudan 4. They do not use the Sudan 4 in that video, in the British video. So the science remains the same. It's just a different testing agent that they're using. So, with the Sudan 4, when we use it, you use distilled water so that there's not any residue of anything in that water, and then you add the Sudan 4. So when the Sudan 4 reacts with just the water, it just is, again, diluted, it's pink, whatever. When it's in the vegetable oil, there's a thick band of like dark red at the top, and you can see that in that video. And it's like dark, strong red, and it kind of separates out because oil and water don't mix. So when there's that band at the top where that vegetable oil separates out from the water, it is red. So for the protein test, it's the Biuret test. So Benedict's and Biuret sound the same, and they are both blue solutions. That can get a little tricky. But the Biuret is the protein test. The Benedict is the glucose test. So however you want to try to remember that, I just know that Benedict's is glucose, protein is Biuret. And so again, it's the same method. You add the reagent to the water to see what it looks like when it's a negative test. You add it to like an albumin solution. So like eggs mixed up in water, whatever, it's a good indicator. And you get a very strong like purple. It's an obvious color change from the blue to the purple. Sometimes it's slightly pink if it's been digested. So there's an obvious color change from the blue to purple or slightly pink. So those are the controls. Those are that first page of videos that you were supposed to do. So on the next one, when you are looking at the biscuit apple cheese one, the reason that you do the first page is so that you know how to read the test results on the second video, on that second page's video. So, okay, what he does in that video is he makes those food solutions and then does those tests and does the results. Sorry, guys. Again, I'm trying to prop everything up so the wind doesn't blow it away. So, a biscuit. A cookie. Again, think cookie here. It says biscuit, not the same kind of biscuit that we in the South think of as biscuits. So, it makes sense that on a simple sugar test, on the Benedict's test, that there would be a positive result. Because, I mean, it's a sugar. It's a cookie. Everybody loves cookies because they're sweet. So, that should yield a positive test. So, think about it with your common sense. So, you know that sugars and starches and fats are in a cookie, right? So, there are no proteins. So, it would make sense that the simple sugar, polysaccharide, so simple sugars, starch, fat would all be positive. And then that the protein test would be negative. So, then you've got the apple. So, apples are sweet, even when they're green, which, my kids are bougie and they have to have the green apples. Like, I can't buy red apples. They get real mad real fast. So it would make sense that an apple would test positive for simple sugars and not starches and not fats and not proteins, because it's a fruit. It's not going to be high in protein. It's not going to be high in fat. It's not going to be high in starch, but it will have some simple sugars. That's why, apple juice is sweet. So next you've got cheese. And so with this cheese that they tested, you get, cheese is not really that sweet. So you're not going to get that sugar, which just because something doesn't necessarily taste sweet doesn't mean it's not going to have sugar in it. But cheese is not a source of sugars. So that one is going to be negative. The next one, that polysaccharide, that starch test, pops positive on this one. And what the guy was saying makes a lot of sense. I mean, cheese is not that starchy. When you think of starchy food, you think like corn, potatoes, that kind of stuff. The additive, because they used shredded cheese, so the additive that they used to keep the shreds of cheese from clumping together are what caused the positive starch test, because it is a starchy solution that they put on the cheese to keep the individual grates of cheese apart. Because if you've ever grated a block of cheese, you know that clumps back up. So it is positive, but usually not. Animal products don't have that positive test because we don't store our excess as starch. Starch gets stored as sugar. That's why you can eat a baked potato and you can eat a candy bar and your body's going to break it down the same. Body's going to, like if you have diabetes and you eat starchy stuff, it's going to raise your blood sugar because your body breaks it down and stores it the same as it does as sugar. That's a whole nother thing. But as for these purposes, what they tested, it was positive for starch. So, but just know that usually animal products like cheese don't test positive for starch like that. Next is fat. The fat test makes sense that it's positive. Cheese is fatty. Cheese is also a good source of protein. So, again, positive for that as well. So, I don't know if this answered any of the questions on the confusion that people were having, but I figure if I just kind of go through and walk you through each step of this, then that will hopefully clear up things. So I want you to watch that. What I want you to turn in to me by 11:59 on Sunday, midnight, I want that biscuit apple cheese filled out. And no excuse to not have it right. We just went through it. So I want it filled out and turned in. Your email to me is timestamped and it'll have your name on it. So fill it out, email it back. You don't have to submit it on Canvas. This is this week's quiz. So this is our 10-point quiz for this week. Fill this out. It should be an easy 10 for everybody. Because like I said, we just went over it. So if you have any other questions, please shoot me an email. I am happy to help and answer any questions that you have. If this didn't clear up whatever confusion you had, email me with the specific confusion and we'll talk it through. If you want to meet me on campus, I'm free to meet anytime tomorrow before 3 o'clock. Or anytime on Friday before about 10:30. So just, you can email me and let me know and we can meet and talk about it, or you can email me and we can talk about it through email, whichever works best for you. If you have any other questions, shoot me an email. As far as getting back in the lab, I still think next week will be virtual. I think some of the other labs might be meeting in person, but I feel like that's a little redundant as long as we're getting our quizzes and stuff in. I'm not going to ask you to meet right now. That way you've got more time to get your stuff done and your stuff for other classes done too. And then we'll hopefully meet back in person ASAP. Or meet in person ASAP. We've not even met one time, much less back. So, again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, doubts, fears, anxieties, you shoot me an email and we'll get it figured out, all right? So, yeah, midnight, 11:59 on Sunday. Email me that completed final chart. There's the word I'm looking for. Send me the chart. All right. Have a great day. Bye, guys.